Celtics Miami run to end the half, and they lead by 6.
I think we just had to settle down a little bit. We saw a couple go in, and we started to play free.
And it's Tatum again with a 3. Bullseye! Boston facing elimination, showing a lot here in this one.
Jason Tatum tonight. He has stepped up to get it done.
We've got a game 5 as the Celtics surge ahead.
We didn't play well those first 3 games, but we didn't want that to define the season. We still got a long uphill battle to go, but tonight was a good start.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the First Take. Thank you for being with us. As you can see, crewed up and ready to go. Stephen A. with a much-deserved day off. He'll be back tomorrow, but we are in good hands. Ladies and gentlemen, we ready to do this?
Let's do it.
All right, let's get it. Game 5 tonight in Beantown. The Celtics looking to build off their momentum from Game 4. Meanwhile, Jimmy Butler and the Heat will look to close it out and punch their ticket to the finals. Here's Butler on a Boston momentum swing.
Jimmy, it's only one loss, obviously, but is there any concern on your part that this could start to build momentum on the Boston side of things?
No. If anything, it'll build momentum for us, knowing that we have to play with a lot more energy. And, we got to play like our backs are against the wall. But I think all year long we've been better and are ready to do things the hard way.
All right. The Heat hope to get back to their hot shooting to close out the series tonight. Miami reined in 16 threes in their Game 1 win in Boston. The Celtics, however, are 9-2 this postseason when they make at least 13 three-pointers and 0-6 when they don't reach that mark. Heat guard Gabe Vincent listed as questionable with an ankle. Monica, I'll start with you. How important is it for the Heat to close it out tonight?
I don't think it's extremely important. I actually think that this thing is going to go 6, and the Heat will close it out at home in Miami. Miami was rocking for games 1 and 2, and I think you'll see some of the same for game 6. Here's the thing. The Celtics got off to a terrible start in this series. I think they've dug a hole that might be too deep to overcome, but this is a team that shoots the 3 ball better at home in the postseason. They're shooting just under 40% from 3 at home, and so I think there is some fortitude. There is some grit. There is a team that made it to the finals last year and that has been to the Eastern Conference Finals consecutive run in terms of seasons. And so there is some pride about them at home in Boston. The Garden gets loud. I think their fans are going to show up for them, and I think the Celtics will get another one tonight. But I just don't know that they'll be able to overcome the deficit that they built in the series in totality.
I'm going to quote, there's a great song from the early part of this millennium that is called It Ends Tonight, All-American Rejects. It ends tonight. There is pressure on the Celtics still to keep this thing going. There's pressure on the Miami Heat to not want to keep this narrative going of the first team to come back from an 0-3 deficit. But one thing I do know, and I've talked to people who are friends of Jimmy Butler, he's not the type of guy that likes to hear this kind of stuff. And so he will be closing the lights tonight in Boston. That's the attitude he brings into games like this. If you saw that smirk on his face in the fourth quarter of Game 4, he was like, all right, so you got one. Okay. But we're going to end the party now. And the more we have talked about this over the last couple of days, and Greeny's been all over this 0-150, somebody's got to be that one. That O's got to go. And Jimmy Butler is saying, nah, I'm closing the lights out tonight in Boston.
Wendy?
Yeah, Molly, I don't think it's vital that they win because when you're ahead 3-1, your backs are not against the wall, despite what Jimmy Butler wants to say. But I understand why they're trying to present it that way, because I think one of the things that you could see in Game 4 was that the Heat lost their edge a little bit. They enjoyed such success in this series. I mean, Eric Spoelstra was actually caught smiling on the bench during Game 3. Eric Spoelstra never non-ironically smiles during a game. And when he did that, it was just an indication, hey, the Heat thought they were in great position and they lost their edge. So I think one of the things that they don't want to do is for that to become a slippery slope. But I will point out, the Heat were in this position in the first round. You know, the Milwaukee Bucks were a team that a lot of people thought were going to win this Eastern Conference this year. They were favored. They were the number 1 seed. There was an expectation that the Bucks would at least get that series back to Miami for Game 6. And the Heat went up there and took care of business up in Milwaukee in a tough place to play, in a tough environment. You may remember Jimmy Butler talking trash to Drew Holiday. I'd never thought I'd see that. I mean, that was amazing. And so the Heat have some history here that they can get this done. They're also got 5 road wins in the playoffs, which is amazing when you consider that they're the number 8 seed. So I don't think that they're going to feel pressure tonight, but I do think that that they're very, very capable, and that this is really going to probably come down to if Boston's hot shooting can continue. They're so reliant on the outside shot, and when they make it, it affects the rest of their game. I wish it wasn't that way. I wish I could. I would have more to go on than just say, well, let's see who makes shots. But frankly, the stats and the demeanor say that that's what's going to matter for the Celtics.
You mentioned the 3-point shooting for the Celtics, Wendy, and that's absolutely correct. But also for the Heat, right? Prior to Game 4, they were shooting 48% from 3 as a team. And yes, they have shot the 3 ball, and we witnessed it much better in the postseason than they did during the regular season. But I did expect their 3-point shooting as a team to regress sort of to the mean, or water to finest level, as they say. Look, this game could go either way. And this series has been tons of fun because as long as you're not a Celtics fan, because it has been so surprising. I just think, to me, the other part of this conversation is that these same 2 teams were here last year. And Jimmy Butler is one of those guys who strikes me as, and I think you guys would probably agree, he's not going to give it up again. Now, we don't necessarily have to talk about tonight per se. Han, you could be absolutely right. If he has to run the point guard spot because of Gabe Vincent's injury, he could go off and have a 50-piece. Anybody that has watched basketball and Jimmy this postseason understands that that is fathomable. But I do think that we saw the worst of the Celtics in games 1 and 2. And there's more there.
There is more there, and the more there has to come from Jason Tatum. I mean, that's what we saw in the Philadelphia series, where they looked so bad in a couple of home games in that series to go down 3-2, and then it took Jason Tatum to detonate at the end of Game 6, and then, of course, the 51-point Game 7. So that's the first step in a comeback. I mean, that's the first thing that you need to see is Jason Tatum playing at that level that we see him play sometimes, but not all the time. But we know when his back's against the wall elimination games, that's generally the guy that you see. So back's literally against the wall, elimination game in your own building. Can Jason Tatum bring it? And then on top, if it's a close game, though, I'm just saying, if it's a close game, I just warn everybody, playoff Jimmy hasn't really showed up yet in this playoffs. We saw a little bit of it in Game 4.
In this series.
They held off in this series. He showed a little bit of it in Game 4, and the Celtics didn't let go of the rope, as we've seen them do already in this series. But if this game is close in Game 5 in Boston, this could be an epic, like what we saw with Giannis and Tatum a couple of years ago in the playoffs. This could be something like that. It could be special tonight.
The Heat are 6-2 in clutch victories in this postseason. The Celtics are just 4-6. So I'm with you. If it's tight in the fourth, of these 2 teams, the Heat have been far more comfortable late in tight games, Wendy.
Yeah, this is such a strange series. I've been calling it the Bizarro Conference Finals. I don't know if people get the reference from Seinfeld. But basically, things that don't make any sense start to happen. And when you look at the numbers, like, it's very hard for me to be able to explain how a team like the Boston Celtics can win 4 consecutive road elimination games over the last 2 postseasons. That winning a road elimination game is something that Hall of Famers do maybe once or twice in their careers, because typically they're so good they don't have that many, and if their team isn't good enough, they don't win them. For example, LeBron James, he has a 20-year career, has played in the playoffs, I think 17 of those 20 years. He has 4 road elimination wins in his entire career, and 2 of them happened in the 2016 finals, which was one of a magical moment for him. The Celtics have done that twice in the last year. So you see or 4 times in the last year. So you see a team that can do that, and you say, oh man, this must be a mental giant of a team. But of course they're not. They're 10-11 at home in that stretch. You see them for whole periods, whole quarters, completely lose their focus. You look at a team like the Heat. Eric Spoelstra is 13-0 in his career playing closeout games at home against everybody else except for the Celtics the last 2 years. He's 0-2. Lost Game 7 last year, lost Game 4 the other night. The Heat have 8 wins in this postseason when they are listed as the underdog by Vegas, which they are again. Okay, they are tied for the second most all-time on record of winning outright when they are the underdog. I cannot explain the way this series is playing out. It's very difficult for me to get my arms around it.
Yeah. I think
and
that's
so I honestly have no idea how it's going to go. But if you're asking me if these blips all across the navigation screen indicate that we could have a 1 in 150 situation, I can't see it, but it's bizarre enough of an occurrence that I have to leave it out.
Wendy,
there.
Let me ask you this, because I was just looking at Gabe Vincent's numbers really quick here, and he had 29 in Game 3, 17 in Game 4. Obviously been really productive for the Heat. What's the latest on his status? We know he's listed as questionable.
Yeah, he's listed as questionable, and actually that's good news for the Heat, because if you saw how hard he rolled that ankle, I thought that he was definitely going to be doubtful. He got testing yesterday, and the Heat felt like he still had a chance to play. A big factor here, Molly, is how effective can he be? Can you play on an ankle? Will it limit him? Will it stiffen up? They're going to probably we'll have an update in a few hours here, but they're going to probably get him warm up and see how he's doing. Kyle Lowry struggled as the starter for the Heat this year, and frankly, he has not had the best series. So promoting him to the starting lineup, that's an easy thing to do, but he hasn't thrived in that role. So as Alan said, if Gabe Vincent is limited or can't go, I'd look for Jimmy Butler more on the ball, which in a one-game setting could potentially be dangerous. I think an even more impetus for the Heat to win in that case, because one of the things you're always worried about Jimmy Butler is him wearing out. And when you play point guard, it's easier for the team to apply ball pressure to you. The Celtics have players that they can pressure full court on, and you can wear Jimmy out a little bit. So those are all factors. Also, one more thing. The Heat are already without 2 guards in this series. Tyler Hero and Victor Oladipo out. So they're just thin at the perimeter right now, and that Vincent injury is significant.
Yeah, and that, of course, Wendy, is what you think from the Celtics' point of view. I mean, how you attack this game. What we saw a little bit in Game 4 was, Jimmy Butler really doesn't want to shoot threes. That's not what he does. And if you just drop off him and you can contain him from the drives and his ability to draw fouls, which is what he really wants to get done against you. So you don't have to play aggressive against him on the perimeter. Gabe Vincent is a good three-point shooter, a threat at the very least there, as well as on the drive. But if you remove that, and now you have Jimmy Butler running the offense and then having to attack, but you're just kind of sitting back a little bit because he really doesn't want to shoot threes unless he's in that, playoff Jimmy mode where he's just completely adrenaline running through his body like rocket fuel. Then, he'll knock down some threes like we saw against Milwaukee. But those are the kind of things that, like J.J. Redick yesterday was laying out, like 3 ways the Celtics can come back. That's certainly one of them, is making Jimmy Butler a jump shooter. Then after that, it's the Celtics making threes. And, Wendy, I know you know the stat better than anybody. They shoot over 39%. They're virtually unbeatable. So the Celtics have to make threes and see if you can turn Jimmy Butler into a three-point shooter or a perimeter player instead of a guy that's going to draw a lot of fouls.
Questionable is great news. Gabe didn't come out after that ankle injury. I don't have any intel, but I imagine that he's going to at least attempt to give it a go just because that's the type of grit and culture that they've established in Miami. And the fact that he stayed on the floor gives me hope that it's not one of those that potentially will take him out. But listen, this series has been incredible. It's going to be fun. We're going to see what happens. And some folks believe the Celtics can defy history, right? 150, it could happen. We'll get into that in just a bit. You guys are going to tap out for a moment. We're going to bring in our NFL guy.